what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing fantastic out there tonight. Had yourselves a wonderful Saturday, and I hope you folks have been having a great weekend out there so far. Here to break down the weather for you folks. We're going to mention really multiple topics in this video, but we'll spend a lot of time on this ice storm potential that's going to crank up as early as tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. We'll get very detailed on that. That'll kind of be the first half of the video. We'll show you some really cool graphics from our friends at the National Weather Service that is going to zoom into these individual areas that I think stand the best chance to see significant icing, which is about a quarter inch or more of ice. That's when you start to get into that ice storm criteria ice, that danger zone with ice, with the the sagging of the tree limbs and the loss of power because of these tree limbs snapping off, trees falling. All those things we do not like to see at all. So we'll get very detailed on that storm system. I mean, I think areas from like Dallas to Chicago could see at least a light glaze of ice. It's just the areas in between those cities that could see the most ice. We'll talk about how cold it could potentially get tonight. I think that's a big deal just because I think this will be the coldest night of the winter for areas like east of the Appalachian Mountains. It's going to get quite cold tonight, even all the way down to Florida. We'll speak on a couple storm systems between now and the next week or so, and how we're going to have a threat of flooding across the southern sections of the lower 48. And then we'll speak on a storm system that I'm kind of watching that's about 7 to 10 days out, kind of the last couple days of January. There's a storm signal, and I would tune in if you're in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, even the entire eastern U.S., that's there that we need to figure out. We got a lot out ahead of us to figure out first, but we will throw it a bone here at the end of the video, and does have a winter storm potential to it. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Asking for prayers for my family to get back from Atlanta, back to here in central South Carolina where we live safely. They left this morning, got there safely to meet their grandparents halfway from the Alabama, like the southwestern portion of Alabama. Just met them halfway, spent the day with them. And just asking they get back safely. I've had the house to myself this weekend. It's been very quiet. The most words I've spoke all weekend has been doing these videos. So it's been a nice rest period for me, but I'm definitely ready to see my girls again. That's for sure. So I know y'all pray for me. We got a family type atmosphere here, and I definitely appreciate y'all very much. Let's get rocking and rolling. So we got the snow flying around still, very light snow in the Northeast. A little bit of a surprise event across the southern New England area where we got some light snow flying around in like the Boston area. And like I said, just southern New England. Still got the lake effect snows, but they're kind of starting to taper off somewhat now. A little bit of light snow flying around out here in North Dakota. And then we got the moisture out west. And really, this is the player that's going to bring a lot of moisture into the southern sections of the country. It's going to be like a trough of low pressure that's going to become like an upper level low, even a cutoff low, and then make its way, kind of meander into the south central U.S. and just bring a steady moist flow into this area of the country. The thing with the kind of the first initial push of this steady moist flow is going to be the fact that there's still a little bit of lingering Arctic air in place. So that's why we're going to have this ice storm potential. So this is what's going on out there across the lower 48. Let's talk about watches, warnings, and advisories. And really the only reason I'm showing you this is because this teal color right here, we got winter storm watches up for sections of like eastern, even southeastern and southern sections of Oklahoma, and then northwest Arkansas. This is ahead of this ice storm potential. And my thought is they're probably going to upgrade these to widespread winter weather advisories. I think at some point we're probably going to have winter weather advisories all the way from, sections of North Texas all the way up to maybe Chicago. But we're probably going to get some ice storm warnings upgraded from this winter storm watch also. So we'll watch for that. We'll see what it looks like as we wake up tomorrow morning. But I do want to show you temperatures for tonight. Very cold across the eastern U.S. Well below zero across the upper and Midwest. And then we're even going to get sub-zero readings, I think, even all the way down into Tennessee. Nashville, I think, will flirt with the 0 degree mark. I think areas in like the Cumberland Plateau will get deep into the single digits. You'll probably get some negative readings somewhere. But it's Florida that's, quite impressive, and you never really want too cold of temperatures the deeper than Florida you get. The panhandle of Florida, North Florida, is a totally different beast than like southern sections of Florida. Miami, once you start to get in temperatures in like the 50s, the iguanas start falling off the trees, and we certainly don't want that. But I think Tampa Bay, could get sub-freezing temperatures by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. So this is an impressively cold air mass, but even teens, into the Carolinas. I think Atlanta will really flirt with like a 9 to 10 degrees. We'll see what happens there, but very cold night ahead. Just kind of wanted to show you that. But let's talk about this ice storm potential. So we'll start off, and let's make sure we got all this right here. So this is around 4 p.m. Central Time. I know it says 5 p.m., but that's in Eastern Time. We'll start off around 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. You can already see, and we're going to show you the NAM. I like the NAM in these situations because I think it indicates temperature profiles a lot better. But it already shows some light freezing rain kind of west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You can even see splotches of it getting into southern Oklahoma, but it's really as we are starting to get into about 8, 9 p.m., we start to see this more widespread light freezing rain breaking out across southern and central Oklahoma. Are you going to get a period of freezing rain to the Dallas-Fort Worth area? We'll see. You're going to get rain, definitely, but it just might be rain at like 34, 35 degrees. But we'll see what happens. But I do think, and the NAM really likes this, that you're going to get a period of freezing rain. And I think you'll get winter weather advisories in this region, kind of west of Dallas and Fort Worth region. I think you'll get a period of freezing rain tomorrow late evening. But it's as we're getting into we're starting to take this about 2 a.m. Monday morning. First off, you're already starting to get some light freezing rain all the way up here into Kansas City, southeast Kansas, and southwest sections of Missouri. Some freezing rain making its way into the Fort Smith region, even Fayetteville. But Oklahoma City seeing a period of light to moderate freezing rain, getting all the way up to Tulsa. And we continue all the way to about daybreak. Let's take it to right here. This is about 6 a.m. Monday morning. You notice you're still trying to hang on to freezing rain. I want to tell you right off the dot, this is a very marginal event, guys. This is nothing compared to what we saw kind of in these regions somewhat like the end of last weekend. This is a totally different beast. This is like a freezing rain event at about 32, 31, 30 degrees. Some areas might hang in the upper 20s for a period. But, you got freezing rain showing up even here in southeast Arkansas, freezing rain moving into certainly in northwest I think I said southwest Arkansas. Texarkana area could even get a period of freezing rain, but really northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, Fort Smith. These are the regions where I'm concerned about an all-out ice storm. But you see these darker purples? That is heavy freezing rain, which in this case, if you get really heavy freezing rain at 31, 32 degrees, it has a lot harder of a time accumulating than if you get a light freezing rain. And it's just because pretty much there's too much motion. That's what it comes down to. But definitely, you could get some sleet mixed in with this. I could see some sleet mixing in with this in Oklahoma. But you keep this going, and the good news with this is you start to go to just plain rain. Which basically what I'm saying is your temperatures start to rise above freezing in like southeast Oklahoma. And you see kind of these splotches of green and this pink, and that's just where temperatures are starting to warm to about 33, 34 degrees. And, by the time you get to about midday Monday, 11 a.m., 12 p.m., it's switching to all rain here in northwest Arkansas. Just rain here in southeast Oklahoma, and this pretty much heads out, and then you start to just get good old rain. A closer look at Arkansas, here comes the freezing rain moving in Monday morning. Could even get a couple hour period of freezing rain in Little Rock. Definitely up here in the Ozarks, Springfield. I think the further north you get, the longer you'll hang on to those sub-freezing temperatures below 32 degrees. But, look at the freezing rain getting into southern Missouri. It looks like you're going to rain, in northwest Arkansas and western Arkansas, southern Arkansas. And I just said Arkansas like a million times there. But you continue to move forward, and you're getting to about early afternoon Monday, and you could get a period of freezing rain around 31, 32 degrees and south into like the Boot Hill, Missouri, and certainly into St. Louis. I think you'll get a solid period of freezing rain to St. Louis before switching to rain. But, eventually you just go to all rain. By the time you're into like Monday evening, this is just rain falling, even areas of heavy rain. You might still have some periods of freezing rain in this, but, you move a little bit further up the road, and this is the area. Once you start to get into the Midwest, that you see the kind of the orange colors, that's when you can get a little bit of a sleet mix, maybe a wintry mix to start this off, maybe some snowflakes up here in like eastern Iowa, western Illinois, and just an all-out wintry mix as you're getting into your Monday morning to kickstart your work week here in Chicago. You could get just maybe just a wintry mix of everything. We got to see what the temperature profiles are like, but the further south and southwest you get, this is freezing rain, and you start to get a period of freezing rain all the way into St. Louis. This looks like a nasty Monday just in general, just a cold, miserable rain, and it's just going to be cold enough for some light ice accumulations all the way up in St. Louis. But you start to get the freezing rain moving into Chicago like Monday afternoon, and a good section of Illinois seeing freezing rain, and then this starts to move all the way into, central Indiana, eastern Illinois. It's still freezing rain falling like Monday evening into Chicago. This gets all the way into southwest Michigan, and you can get a period of freezing rain all the way into Indianapolis. And even up here, eventually, it gets too warm for even freezing rain. It's just falling as rain. So what are we talking about as far as ice total? Here's a broad look at this, and you can tell the darker pinks is where higher ice totals are forecast. And if you look down here, you're starting to get some 0.2 of an inch of ice forecast, and even over a 1/4 inch, and somebody could potentially even get a 1/2 inch of ice, which is not good. But you even got areas, all the way up into the Midwest. There's even a glaze of ice forecast in the Ohio Valley. You got some areas that are over 1/10 of an inch of ice. Once you start to get over 1/10 of an inch of ice, you can really see the glaze on the trees and cars and stuff like that. But let's really zoom into these areas. First off, we show you the Dallas-Fort Worth region. They're calling for, 1/100th of an inch of ice. So that's barely even enough to really even visibly see it. I don't think you could really. But, the further north you get of the city, a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice, someone could squeeze in maybe 1/10 of an inch of ice, maybe up here near the Red River region. So we move a little bit further up north, Oklahoma City going for, 7 1/100ths of an inch of ice. Maybe Lawton, maybe 1/10 to a 15th of an inch of ice. Ada, not sure how y'all pronounce that. They're going for over 3/10 of an inch of ice. So these are kind of the readings that you get worrisome. You get kind of worried because once you start to get over, a 1/4 inch, that's the danger zone. That's the zone you don't want. That's when you start to get into that full-on ice storm. Ardmore, going for over a 1/4 inch. Durant, 0.2 of an inch of ice is forecast. And, you look at the National Weather Service out of Tulsa, going for about 1/10 of an inch to a 1/4 inch of ice here. McAllister, a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of ice is forecast. About a 1/4 inch in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Fayetteville, about 1/2 inch. No, not a 1/2 inch. Like 1/10 of an inch of ice to about a 1/4 inch of ice. So, this is an area that we need to watch. Especially here in Arkansas. Speaking of Arkansas, they got a pretty good graphic here. They're saying in the red regions, they're saying a 1/4 to around a 1/2 inch is possible. And they just upgraded this. So, I think if anybody's going to get the worst of the ice, that's going to be between Russellville to Fayetteville to Fort Smith. This area right in here is going to get the most ice out of this entire event. But they're saying, a glaze to a 1/10 of an inch of ice is even possible in Little Rock. And then kind of this orange yellowish color is anywhere from a 1/10 to an inch of ice to a 1/4 inch. So move on up the road a little bit into Missouri. Springfield going for a little over a 1/10 of an inch. Ava, 2/10 of an inch of ice. Joplin, maybe around a 1/10 of an inch of ice. Anderson, about the same thing. But, find where you are. Not much expected up into Kansas City, not even forecasting anything. We go up into St. Louis. This is when we can get a stripe of not significant icing, but appreciable ice totals, enough to where you can see it. But, St. Louis going for a little over a 1/10 of an inch. A glaze once you start to get kind of further northwest into Missouri. But Springfield, Illinois, basically this entire like darker shade of yellow, almost orange color, I think you could go on and expect about a 1/10 of an inch of ice here. So, all right, folks, we're going to nerd out with you. And I might lose some people with this, but I meant to explain this with the last event. But I think that this is a fantastic event to show you an example of why we're seeing freezing rain. You asked Mitch, why is it raining at 30 degrees? Well, first off, we call that freezing rain. It's basically, it looks the same as rain, but it's raining with surface temperatures where you're standing at 32 degrees or lower. So you ask, why do we get certain precipitation types? For example, like in northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, with this last winter storm, you were thinking, why isn't it snowing when it's like 18 degrees outside? Well, I'll show you why. So this is a sounding. This is the surface down here of this sounding, all right? At the surface, it says it's 29 degrees in the red. The dew points are in the green, which is 27-degree dew point. But let's just focus on the temperature. So you see this 0 right here? That stands for 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you notice this 0 degrees Celsius line, this blue line right in here, it kind of goes up like this. The higher it goes, that's the higher up in the atmosphere you are. Same thing with this. This is in millibars. So, like 850 millibars, that's about a mile up in the atmosphere, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up. So what this is showing you guys is it's 29 degrees at the surface. And if you're wondering where the sounding is at, I took a sounding out about eastern Oklahoma, right near the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. So this is where I took the sounding out. And this is when we're getting freezing rain. So this is freezing rain occurring. So it's 29 degrees and it's raining, right? If you go up, man, I'm saying all you got to do, guys, is go up about 2,000 feet, right? You warm above freezing about 2,000 feet up in the air. So what I'm saying is the air is warmer 2,000 feet up in the air. That's not that high up. It really isn't. But you go about a mile up in the air, like 850 millibars, which is around 4,000 to 6,000 feet, let's say. Okay, give or take 100 feet. The temperature is, if you look right here, this stands for 10 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius. The temperature, guys, is like, in Fahrenheit, about 45 to 46 degrees, about, let's just say 5,000 feet up in the air. So that's a huge difference. That's almost a 20 degree difference between the surface and about 5,000 feet up in the air. That is your warm nose. You ever heard people talk about a warm nose? It's an area of warm air aloft, above our heads. So you got that area of warm air. So if we start from higher up and go back down, it's very cold. Cold, cold, cold. I mean, it's frigid. It's well below 32 degrees. But if you notice, the further you're going south, not south, I say that a lot when I describe soundings. It's always a tricky thing to explain. The lower you get in the atmosphere, the closer you get to the surface, okay? You're getting lower in feet. You're getting to the point where you're several thousand feet up in the air. Then you're getting to the point where just around here where you're about 8,000 to 9,000 feet up in the air. But you notice you're getting warmer and warmer. You see how this red line is the temperatures are climbing more and more and more, and then it spikes right here. So it's snowing, then bang, right here. About several thousand feet up in the air. Let's just say that, okay? Probably 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 feet up in the air, right? Right in here, the temperature begins to warm above 32 degrees because there's a 0 degrees Celsius line. So this is when right here, when the temperature goes above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it warms all the way into the mid-40s, about a mile up in the air. And then it dramatically drops all the way into the 20s at the surface. So you ask, why is it colder though at the surface? Well, it's because Arctic air is shallow and there's still just enough Arctic air hanging around at the surface for us to get some freezing rain out of this event. So basically you got snow, melting to sleet, and then it gets so warm it melts all the way to rain. So it's just raining about a mile up in the atmosphere, about 5,000 feet up. But then it cools back down. But we do not have basically an area of cold air that's large enough for this rain to kind of freeze back into sleet. Okay, so it has no time. So basically it just falls to rain at temperatures below freezing. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like I do a better job explaining that kind of stuff than others. That's one part of my channel that I'm trying to get better with, is explaining the nerdy stuff. But that's why. Just basically think that there's warmer air above our heads. And that warmer air is melting the snow that's falling even higher above that warmer air. So And then by the time, it gets to cooler air, it doesn't have time to really refreeze into sleet or even snow. So it's just falling to the surface as rain with temperatures below 32 degrees. So at the surface, with it being 32 degrees, it just freezes on everything. So hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, ask questions. I'm here to help you guys. But I do want to show you another portion of this storm for my folks in the upper Midwest. As we're getting into Tuesday, I do think we could get a snow event for Iowa. I mean, maybe some light snow into like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes region. I think we could get a small snow event from this Tuesday and a Tuesday afternoon. And then I think we could get a small snow event that kind of pushes into the interior sections of the Northeast. I could see even Boston, Tuesday evening getting a little bit of snow from this with just enough cold air lingering around. But then what I want you to watch here is look at another storm system that pushes in kind of into Tuesday evening. This kind of orange and red and yellows you see down here, that is pretty heavy rain. It's just starting to move over these same areas. So there goes a big storm system right up the Mississippi River, the valley regions, and then here comes another storm system starting to bring some heavy rain a little bit further east into the mid-south, the deep south. Here comes another storm system, and I think you'll finally begin to dry out later this coming work week in Arkansas. But the deep south, into the mid-south starts to see some heavy rain, and this eventually makes its way into the Carolinas, the southeast, and we just get a very moist pattern. Here comes another storm system, getting into next weekend, and then we'll have to watch this one, and this brings even more rain. So a very rainy week setting up. If you look at your 7 or 10 day forecast, you'll see it all over the place, in Arkansas, Louisiana, and just the southern states. Snowfall from this system moving in for the upper Midwest. Bang, there it is. It's not a whole lot, maybe an inch of snow in Green Bay. Not a big event at all, but it'll just kind of add a little bit of snow to these areas that already have snow. And then same thing with the Northeast. This is kind of between now and Monday morning. And then here comes this light event that moves in kind of midweek. And it does show a little bit of snow down to Boston. The interior Northeast could add in a couple inches of snow. It's very possible, but not a big event at all. But, you go back down to the flooding risk. You got a slight risk of flooding down here already from Monday and Tuesday morning. I could see this increasing. And as we get into Tuesday into our Wednesday, I think we'll introduce a flooding risk further east. In fact, they're already discussing it. So I think we're going to end up getting a moderate risk of flooding, which is at least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being met somewhere this week. I really do. And really what's driving this is this feature right here. Okay, this is starting off tomorrow morning. This is our upper trough. And if you look at this extension right here, this is our upper level low. And this kind of extends out into the south central U.S. And what's happening here is this is pulling in a lot of moisture from the south into this region. The flow around this blue area is going like this. This is lower pressure. This is higher pressure. And there's still Arctic air into these areas. And that's why you're getting that colder air. Remember, this is at 500 millibars. We don't live at 500 millibars. We live at the surface. 500 millibars is several thousand feet up in the air. So even though it's the atmosphere in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the air in the upper levels of the atmosphere is much warmer at the surface, which is what I just explained to you with the soundings, is much colder. So still, but eventually this mixes down to the surface. But you keep this going, and we just watch this feature, and this kind of sets up shop for a while, but eventually it does kind of start to move, eventually kind of eastward. But you can really barely see it, but it's there. And then you get a full-fledged cutoff low that kind of moves in, and then this could be our next significant storm system to really talk about. We got to watch what this does as it tries to combine with some northern stream energy as we move forward here. And, talking about all this rain that could fall in this area, and really what's causing it, and here it is. This is potential rainfall between now and Saturday morning, several inches of rain in eastern Texas. And this is all because of that kind of upper level low that kind of sets up shop over here. And basically right around the immediate upper level low right in here, there's not a lot of rain, but it's on that right quadrant of it that yanks in all this warm Gulf moisture from the south that really starts to plaster these areas of the South. I mean, areas of like Southeast Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Southern Arkansas, getting 4, 5, 6 inches of rain based off the blend of all models between now and Saturday morning of this coming weekend. And I mean, you start looking the eastern U.S. and I mean, yeah, good bit of rain moving into the Mid-South, even to the Ohio Valley, even into areas of the Southern Alps region. So definitely a rainy week coming up for the South for sure. And we're going to have flooding issues for sure. So, moving forward and kind of looking at temperatures, because that's something big changing too. Sunday, you're still well below average. You're across the southern sections of the country, the eastern sections of the country. But you see, this is dramatically replaced with well above average temperatures, especially in Canada. And what's happening here is we're extending our Pacific jet into Canada, and we're basically flooding the entire continent of North America with warm Pacific air. So pretty much everybody's feeling the effects of this just about. And by the time we get into like Wednesday, we're starting to see above average temperatures for the eastern U.S. and northern sections of the country. Up here in Canada, it's well above average. And I mean, by the time we're starting to get into like Thursday and Friday, we start to flat out torch, which means we're probably going to get temperatures in the 60s and 70s in the southeast. And it's getting very, very warm. We're going to lose all that snowpack that we gained over the last week for a lot of these areas. I mean, look at Friday. I mean, if you're wondering how warm that is, that's temperatures that are like 20 to 25 degrees above average. I think what's going to be the most impressive thing with this warm-up coming up is the low temperatures are not going to be low at all. I mean, here in my neck of the woods in South Carolina, they're thinking some morning lows will not get below 60 degrees. So, I mean, that's impressive for the heart of January. And this continues, folks. I mean, it looks like warmer than average air kind of dominates through all of next week and next weekend. So, how warm can these temperatures be? Tomorrow is going to be pretty cold still. But look how much it warms up as we're getting into Monday. Already getting back into the 50s for these areas. You finally begin to melt this snow that's, I've heard a lot of people in the Mid-South saying they're sick of winter already. They just wish it would end. Not so fast. We haven't got anything from my folks here in the Carolinas. You got to let us get a bone here. But by the time you're into Tuesday, it's getting into the 50s in Nashville. All right, you're starting to hit 60 degrees in like Columbia, Birmingham, Jackson. I mean, down here in the southern sections of the Deep South, they're getting deep into the 70s. And then look at these temperatures as we're getting into Wednesday, all the way up to 70 degrees in Columbia. Raleigh might hit 70 degrees. Look, you're trying to get close to the 80s, folks, in southern sections of Georgia. Certainly widespread 80s in Florida. And, I mean, you will get to the 80s, I think, potentially at least Thursday into South Georgia. So, man, you want to talk about a January thaw. This is an all-out torch coming in. And, I mean, it would be beautiful weather if we weren't getting so much rain, but it looks like we're going to get a very rainy pattern with this too. So it's not going to be bright, sunny conditions with temperatures in the 70s, I don't think, for most of us. And then as we get into next weekend, things start to cool back down, but still above average temperature-wise. So we'll end this video talking about this. I'm watching the last couple days of January, and we're getting into like next weekend, and we're going to watch, first off, this little storm system right here that could have the potential to be, anything but little. It could be big. The GFS says, hey, significant winter storm at the end of next weekend for areas of the Northeast. And another northwest flow event that you're seeing, this is next Sunday morning. Guys, please believe me when I say this is not a forecast. This is something we're watching. But this turns, based off this run of the GFS, shows a pretty significant snowstorm for areas of the Northeast. And then it heads out. And then we have something weird showing up around the last 1 or 2 days of January. And I'm watching this. There's a shot of cold air that dives down. There's a lot of energy kind of flying around out here. Shows some light snow. But look how far out we are. Past 10 days. But I'm watching this time frame as we round off the last day or two of January into the first day of February. And the European, which only goes out 10 days, it doesn't really like that storm system, making it all the way up into the Northeast. It shows it, kind of there it is, but a couple days later. But there's just a huge difference. For example, next Sunday evening for the Northeast shows an all-out storm system, winter storm. But on the Euro, it doesn't show anything. So it goes to show you that we still got a lot to figure out with this storm system coming up. So that's all I got, guys. Have a great night, and I'll be with you tomorrow morning. God bless.